Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Gooners podcast. This is actually freaking me out because I have been so consistent this past couple of weeks that it is freaking me out in the first place because you know how consistent we are or how inconsistent we are. But today we are back and we are back starting the Premier League and our usual shows. This is going to be our preview for the Nottingham Forest game. And with us today we have our special guest. I mean, we already had someone from their channel last year, the 1985, is it? Yeah, 1895. Oh, I'm just messing that up.
1865.
1865. Yes. And that's my
That
that is why I need Eben or someone else here to get me corrected on these things. Sorry, 1865 Nottingham. That's their channel. Like they have been with us last time. Thomas was with us. This time we have Adam with us. Hi, Adam.
Hi guys, you all right?
All doing good. And then we have Eben with us, who is here to correct my mistakes, like how I did earlier. Hi, Eben.
Hi, Picasso.
And obviously to talk football. These two are going to talk, and I'm going to be the dumb guy who's going to drive the conversation for forever. So with that out of the way, like the usual stuff, just like, subscribe, and follow us and follow 1865 Nottingham. They are pretty good. That's why we are bringing them every year, every season, every game because it's fun to talk to them. Also, they are a fun bunch by themselves. So let's start with you, Adam. Like last season you guys, I wouldn't say avoided relegation. You were comfortably out of relegation battle. With the way you guys started, especially firing of the backroom staff and like Steve Cooper having that bad time initially and stuff. What are your thoughts at the end of the season, and like what are your thoughts right now?
Yeah, I mean, the season was a bit of a roller coaster for us. Being back in the Premier League for the first time in 20 plus years, it was certainly an experience. I think the problem was sort of earlier in the season we tried to play how we did in the Championship, and you can't do that. You attack teams and we beat teams 4-5 then in the Championship. In the Premier League, it's just a completely different animal. Yeah, look, the way that we ended the season was fantastic. I mean, the last sort of 2 or 3 months, we really started to hit some really good form. We picked up, points against Chelsea, against Man City, and then obviously against you guys, which, it's not taking me long to mention beating Arsenal, but it was, no, it was a great day. I was obviously at the City Ground that day, and, when that was the game that guaranteed us safety, and it was a really, really special day. And I think, to be honest, Arsenal probably were a little bit down after, the title was gone at that point, really, wasn't it? I think you guys knew that. So I think it was kind of playing on the players' mind a bit. But yeah, no, we had a really good end to the season. We knew coming into the new season that we wouldn't be signing 30 players. I think we knew that. I think it was going to be a bit more, a bit quieter this year. So it's been quite relaxing for us. Only signed 3 players, but obviously the latest one you boys know very well.
Mm-hmm. I was just getting to that. Like you get, I mean, when we are talking about like signings, right? Like, yeah, Matt Turner is, for me, I didn't rate him that much, but I didn't also like hate him. He was a decent goalie for me, but he still had his own shortcomings, is what I thought. But I think Eben rated him highly. Eben, do you
Yeah.
wanna?
So I think for us, what I rated him for was his penalty. I think even for the US national team, for us, I think Aaron Ramsdale had not saved a penalty until very recently in a very long time. So I think from that point of view, but I think he's a very good shot stopper as well. I think the only thing he was lacking from our perspective or Arsenal's gameplay perspective was probably playing out from the back, how good he was with his feet. That was probably somewhere he was basically there was a big gap between Ramsdale and him. And I think obviously he is the number one for the US national team now. So I think he wanted, I think from what we've been reading, he wanted to play more with the World Cup in the United States in the horizon. So I think he wanted to play more, that it made sense. So all
But
the
Adam,
best of for him.
do you think he's going to be first choice though? Like, do you think he's going to have to fight for his spot?
At the moment, he will be first choice because we only have two senior goalkeepers. Obviously, but neither of them are at Premier League quality. Really, they're not starting goalkeepers. Even Ethan Horvath and Wayne Hennessy, that they're not players that we want to be starting the season with, especially away at Arsenal first game. I think that would be pretty difficult for us if we were to do that. So, look, I think Turner probably he will start the season as number one. Whether or not we end up signing another goalkeeper is that's kind of the question, right? That's where we look at and go, okay, so the Dean Henderson one's difficult for us because Man United don't want to loan him out again. They want in excess of £20 million for him. He's still carrying an injury, so it's a really difficult one for us to get over the line. So at the moment, Turner's number one, and to be honest, I think a lot of Forest fans are fine with it. I don't think anyone's really excited by it, but I think we're fine with it. And the fee rumored to be about £7 million as well. It's a bit of a bargain for us, and it lets us spend a bit more money in different areas as well. And it probably takes the pressure off because we might not have to sell Brennan Johnson, for example, to kind of confide, like go with FFP, and maybe, you know, if we were going to sign a goalkeeper for 25-30 million pounds, then we'd have to raise some funds. So it's a good signing for us, but I suppose it's probably not the most exciting.
But your exciting signing, do you think it's Elanga and Chris Wood? Are those your exciting signing?
I think Chris Wood obviously was on loan with us last season, and his loan was only really, he had to play 3 games or 4 games or something like that, and then the loan will be made permanent. He's not a favourite with the Forest fans, Chris Wood, to be honest. But he's got a full season now. He's had a full pre-season with the team, so maybe he will have a better year this year. But I think everyone's very excited about Elanga. You know, he's 21 years old. He's fast, he's exciting, he's skillful. It's how he plays, and I think for us it's a really good signing. Not spent too much money on him either, so I think it will work out really well. We were never going to go and sign 10, 15 players. Again, it was always just going to be probably 5 or 6. I suspect we'll probably sign a few more before the end, but so far it's not too bad.
As an Arsenal fan, we didn't like Elanga in the first place, but if he's in Nottingham Forest, that's better than whoever plays for Manchester United. So, Ibn, sorry.
I just wanted to ask. So, are you worried about losing Brennan Johnson? Because there were reports doing rounds that if Spurs lose Harry Kane, they might be interested in Brennan Johnson.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I think Brennan is obviously he's very young. He had a very good season in the Premier League last year. Obviously, his age being 21, 22, and that was his first year in the Premier League. He did really well. So we wouldn't want to lose him. But unfortunately, modern day football, this is the nature of the game, isn't it? Sometimes clubs at our level do have to sell our better players to, stick with FFP, but also bring in a couple of players. I mean, the talk of the money side of things, it would take at least 50 million for Forest to even talk to a team about Brennan Johnson. So I think we'd end up getting 50, maybe upwards of 60 million for Brennan Johnson. I think if you get offered that amount of money, it'd be really hard to keep him, and it'd be really hard to say no because of FFP and because of with 50, 60 million, we can probably bring in 2 or 3 players. So it's tough, but we wouldn't want to lose him, but I think it's definitely a possibility. And I think Tottenham would be a good fit because Ange Postecoglou does like his young players. I think Brennan would get a lot of game time, unlike Jed Spence, who went there and hasn't had the game time. So yeah, I'd be a good move for Brennan, but we're hoping it doesn't happen.
But the other person who actually moved, I wanted to get some clarity is Lingard. What happened there? Like, there's no information out, like what happened, what is happening. So what happened there? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, so with Lingard, it was a tough one, really, because when he signed for us at the start of the season, there was media outlets that were saying he was on 150, 200 grand a week. That simply was completely untrue. He was on about like 80 grand a week at Forest, which for us was still an awful lot of money, don't get me wrong. But I don't think he came to Forest for a payday. There's a lot of people says he signed a 1-year contract to get a payday at Forest and then move on. I don't think that was the case. I think what happened was we signed Lingard and he was going to be the starting number 10. He was going to be the starting attacking midfielder. And then we signed Morgan Gibbs-White. We didn't think we'd get Gibbs-White, and it sort of rumbled on for the whole summer. And then once the season started, we signed Gibbs-White in sort of early August. And then,
I mean, Gibbs-White is just like, is so good. Like, I really like him as a player. Like,
yeah,
number 10, that guy is like really, really, he has a very high ceiling to look up to.
100%. And I think that's where Lingard struggled so much, because he just wasn't going to get in front of Gibbs-White. So he found his playing time very limited. And then he had a lot of little injuries and all that sort of stuff, which didn't help. Wherever he goes, but it just didn't work out at Forest. I think it was just probably the right player at the wrong time for us.
The about this season though, yeah, those are like the signings and stuff, but your preseason has not been like, you had a great end of last season, but the preseason has not looked that great. Are you worried about like certain things in this team right now, or are you looking forward to going like, okay, that's just preseason?
I think it's tough because the end of last season we had Keylor Navas in goal. We had Felipe was still starting, and Felipe is our best defender. We had Moussa Niakate starting, and after the second game of pre-season, Moussa Niakate was injured, Felipe was injured, Keylor Navas is no longer at the club, and we were playing a 19-year-old youth team goalkeeper for the majority of pre-season. So we at no point did we really put out a very, very strong side. The strongest side we played was probably our last pre-season game against Frankfurt, which we drew 0-0, and we played quite well. I mean, Frankfurt are a good team, so I think there was a little bit of concern with the Forest fans, but I think as soon as we get Felipe back, we get Niakate back, and then we get maybe a goalkeeper in to go with Turner, then I think maybe we'll be a bit more relaxed. But luckily, I suppose for Arsenal, Felipe and Niakate aren't going to be fit for Arsenal, and Awani probably won't be fit for Arsenal either. So we're missing 3 starting players, 3 very key players from last season. So there's a bit of concern for the first game, but realistically, we probably don't expect to go to the Emirates and beat Arsenal anyway, even with our starting 11, injury free.
Eben, regarding Arsenal side of things, right? Like in the Community Shield, we had that scare, or like for me, it was a scare, like Thomas Partey getting that head injury and then playing with a bandage on his head. Do you think he's still like available for this game, or do you think we shouldn't be risking him?
I haven't read anything that says he isn't available, so I'm assuming he is. So I think he was, if he had a concussion or something, they might not have let him in the first place with a bandage. So I'm hoping he's in. But I would actually expect the same lineup that started against City to play
Really?
the Forest game.
We are
Probably.
getting there anyways, yeah. So why not? Regarding the lineups, then I'll start with Arsenal lineups. Really, you want Havertz to start in the number 9, like false 9.
Personally, I want Trossard to start, but I've got a feeling that we started Havertz maybe as before this game, we started in the Community Shield, we started him to basically try him out, and he actually didn't do bad. And Forest are going to be defending. And basically, to break them down, I think Havertz might be useful. Even in the air, he's better than most of our other players. So I think that's why probably Havertz will get the nod for this game at least. And to be frank, I think because it's at home, I'm more confident because we haven't beaten Forest away in a very long time. So at home, I'm a little more confident that we'll be able to play our game. I think we'll go with the same starting lineup as City, which is basically, I think, Ramsdale in the goal, and with, I think, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, and White, the back four, with Partey, Rice, and Odegaard in the midfield, and the front three of Saka, Martinelli, and Havertz.
Okay. Adam, if I have to ask you, what would be your starting lineup for this game?
I think with the injuries we've got, we'll probably end up playing a back five, I would imagine, with wing backs. So at the moment, it'll be Turner in goal. Back three, just because of the injuries we've got, is going to have to be McKenna, Worrell, and potentially Bolly. With Felipe and Niakate both being out, I think it's just a massive blow for us. Left wing back, I'd imagine Olerainen probably starts, one of our new signings. He's been really good in pre-season, like he's looked really promising. We'd probably go Serge Aurier just because it's Arsenal, and I imagine that I think he'd be quite up for the game. And I know, I think he's, as an ex-Tottenham player, I think he's probably got a bit of motivation against Arsenal. We'd probably then go for a midfield three of Mangali, Yates, and Danilo. Which is probably our strongest midfield three anyway. So I think we're pretty fine with that.
I've been very, very impressed with Yates too. Like he's been very solid the way he has played, and now he's an all-action midfielder, but he feels more. I don't know. He kind of gives me a feeling of, like, cross between Frank Lampard and Aaron Ramsey. That's what I could think of. I don't know.
I'm sure he'd take that. I'm sure he'd be pretty happy if you said that to him. But no, I mean, Ryan Yates has come on a lot. I mean, he was definitely a player that Forest fans were concerned he wouldn't adapt to the Premier League, and he certainly has. But yeah, that'd probably be our strongest midfield three, and then we'll probably be quite conservative with Gibbs, White, and Johnson as the front two. We would normally play over three. Well, last season we played more of a 4-3-3 type formation. It was quite in transition, it was a little bit different, but it was essentially a 4-3-3, and we would then have Gibbs, White, Awani, and Johnson. But Awani being injured, I imagine we'd probably go with a back five, that midfield three, and then Johnson and Gibbs, White up front.
You don't think Elanga would get a start?
No, I don't think so. I think it's not really anything to do with him either. It's not his fault. I think it's just more that I don't see us playing with winger. I mean, the only other thing we could do is we could go Yates and Danilo, and then we could have Gibbs, White, Johnson, and Elanga, because that obviously Elanga and Johnson have got a lot of pace between them, and if we're going to have anything out of this game, it's going to be on the counter attack. So I suppose we could do, but I think we'll probably play with three midfield just to shore things up a bit more.
But that's actually interesting, because back five or back three, you guys always play that way. I thought for this game, because you were not having that defender, you might go to back four. Do you think Steve Cooper would ever change, like, the formation to a back four? Because back three nowadays is not. I mean, not a lot of teams plays that way.
Yeah, so we did play with a 4-3-3 a lot last year. When Steve Cooper came into Forest originally, when we were in the Championship, we played a back three because we had Jed Spence as one of our wing backs, and he was just fantastic. So that's kind of the way we played then. But I suppose maybe going forward, we could look at maybe going for a four, just because we've got so many, obviously the centre back injuries as well. So if we went with a four, I would say it would probably be the same players, but I'd probably go with Worrell and Bolly, I would say. McKenna's fitness is still not 100%, so it'd probably Bolly and Worrell, but we're not going to be playing with our strongest 11, which we know. But I think, to be honest, it might sound quite strange, but if we were going to have a couple of players out for the first game, I'd rather have a few players out for Arsenal away than Sheffield United at home, because Arsenal away, I don't think we expect to get an awful lot from, whereas Sheffield United at home, it's a game we think we'll win. So I'd rather have a couple of players back for the Sheffield United game rather than for the Arsenal game anyway.
But okay, so if I have to ask you which, like, yeah, you mentioned midfield, but where do you think you guys can hurt Arsenal? Like, if they're, yes, I mean, in counterattacking and all those things is good, but like, what part of the pitch do you think it'll be a challenge for Arsenal to match what Forest does?
I think most of our dangerous play will come from Gibbs White getting space in the middle of the park, because what he does is, when we've got two players in front of him, so when we can play with Awani and Johnson, he tucks back into that sort of gap between the defensive midfield and the centre backs of the opposition. He operates in that space there, and he's very good at his final third passing. So if Arsenal let Gibbs White play, I think they have a serious issue on the day, because once he picks up the ball, he can really pick a pass. You know, he can dribble past, he can beat a man, that sort of thing. It's difficult, because I think if we do start with Alanga and Johnson, I think where we're looking to hurt Arsenal is on the break with our pace, because Gibbs White in the hole with Johnson and Alanga either side of him, he's got two options and two out balls there. And Arsenal's defense, I wouldn't look at your defense, say you've got particularly fast fullbacks. I think centre halves, you've got probably two of the fastest and most athletic centre halves in the league, but your right back and left backs, they're not particularly as quick. So I think that's an area we could hurt if we play a front three, but it just really depends on which way we set up. But that's where we hurt teams last year mostly.
Eben, what about Arsenal? Where do you think we can hurt Forest?
Everywhere. I mean, I think most places, but look, I think centrally. But this is the thing, right? So it's a bit of a strange one, the setup for Saturday, because we're missing our starting centre halves. Arsenal are missing their starting striker. Kai Havertz, for me, he's not a traditional number 9, right? He doesn't operate as a traditional number 9. So I think we've got to look at Kai Havertz and say, right, we need to isolate him out of the game. But if we isolate Kai Havertz, then you've still got Saka and Martinelli going either side at our fullback. So it could be tough. It'll be a tough day for us. I think we know that. We'd have to be pretty much perfect on Saturday to get anything out of the game. I think we know that.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, Saka, just one player. I think he'll make the difference. That's what I feel.
Okay. So the thing that I also wanted to ask Adam is, like, with of course this is an Arsenal podcast. So last season, what was, like, as Arsenal fans, we really enjoyed last season because Arsenal went on a very good title run, which we didn't expect, and then, like, yeah, we faltered, but we still enjoyed it. As looking over from the other side, what do you guys think of this team and the manager?
I think from a Forest perspective, looking at Arsenal, I would say that Mikel Arteta was probably at different points over the last couple of years, maybe close to losing his job. There was a lot of, I've got friends that are Arsenal fans that didn't want him to stay. But this season, he's just, like last season, sorry, he really proved that his methodology and his way of playing will work with Arsenal. So that Arsenal were fantastic to watch last year. Every time you watch Arsenal, they set up brilliantly. You know, you've got very exciting players, obviously with Saka, Martinelli. But I think this season, the key for Arsenal is that they just strengthened in very key areas. Obviously, Declan Rice was a fantastic signing. Kai Havertz, for me, look, I think for Arsenal, it's where he plays. I think he can operate as an 8. He can operate as a left winger, a striker, right? You know, he's so versatile, and I think that's probably one of the reasons he was signed for Arsenal. But then I'd even say, like, from then, Jurrien Timber was fantastic in the Community Shield. So Arsenal were brilliant last year and have only strengthened, and that must be positive for you guys. But I still think that Man City. I think the reason City won the league last year is because they've been in that position before. So when Arsenal chucked away points against West Ham, got beat by Forest, those sort of games Man City don't drop points in. Man City from February to May are just absolutely just unbeatable from that period. It's almost like they switch on and go, right, okay, we need to win the league from here. So that is something that any team that wants to pose a threat to Man City this season needs to think we've got to be very good. We've got to be better than City. And City are probably one of the best teams we've ever seen in the Premier League. So I'll be honest, it's a tough ask. I think that City will win the league again this year. But I think for Arsenal, the key this season, because you've got Champions League football, is to balance the squad between Champions League and Premier League. And I think if Arsenal finish second again this season, I think that's a very, very good achievement because all of the other teams are going to get better. Chelsea will be better this year. Man United will be better. Liverpool will be better. Tottenham probably won't be better. They'll probably be worse. But, like, I think at the very
you're gonna
least,
be loved in our podcast for just that statement. Like people are gonna love that.
if Kane leaves Tottenham, I'd be very, very worried for Tottenham going forward. Extremely worried. But we'll see. We'll see if he goes to Bayern Munich or not.
I mean, we would be happy if he goes to Bayern Munich. I mean, we want everything bad to happen to Tottenham. So there we go. But Adam, like for this season, what is your prediction for us? Where do you want? I mean, where do you want your team to finish? Would be a different thing, but where do you expect your team to finish?
I think this season, the goal from the owners, we have very ambitious owners. So I think the goal this season will to not be in that relegation battle again. For the last 2 or 3 months of the season, we proved that we don't, we are good enough to not be in that battle. I mean, Sheffield United and Luton that have come up, I think they are extremely poor teams. I don't see either of them staying up. And then you've got Everton down there. You've got Wolves down there with Lopetegui gone from Wolves. That's a massive blow for them. West Ham have got a balanced European football, so they're going to have a tough season as well. Brentford without Ivan Toney. There's so many factors that go into this that because we're a settled team and we've got a settled squad this year, I think we'd probably finish about 14th, 13th, 14th. So just a little bit below that mid-table spot. I think that's probably where we'll be this season.
Okay. And about you would just wrap up this podcast with a round of predictions for this game. I'll start with the guest, Adam.
I'll go lower than what I think we 2-0 to Arsenal.
And okay, do you want to predict any scorers from this game? Like, do you see?
I think for us, the only way we get anything out of the game is if we, as I said earlier, we've got to be pretty much perfect, and we've got to hope that Arsenal have a little bit of an off day. Anything can happen in the Premier League. Don't get me wrong; like we could, we could nick a 1-0 win or something like that. But I think if I'm using my head, I'm probably saying that I'd imagine we probably lose 2-0. The only way we get anything out of the game, the only way if we get a point or a win out of the game is if Arsenal have a bit of an off day and Arsenal don't deal with Gibbs White. And I think maybe we can get some out of it, but I don't think so, to be honest. I know it sounds very negative, but I don't think so.
That's right. We are okay with that because if that's an Arsenal win for us. Evan, your prediction for this game?
I'll go with the final. Those were the score lines for the last 2 times.
5-0, really?
So last season we won final playing at home. And I think before that in 2019, I think it was a League Cup game we won final. That was also at home. There are a couple of 1-0 losses away, but at least at home we've been winning. So I'll go with the final.
Wow, 5-0. Okay. Do you see any prediction on the scorer side of it?
I think we'll have our usual suspects, Martinelli, SAKA, Odegaard.
Okay. Well, 5-0 is a bold prediction. I still am very skeptical.
I'm entering the season with full-on optimism. Let's see if it remains like this till the end of the season.
That's optimism or a little bit of delusion. We'll see. But yeah, that's the end of it. I think we had a great time, Adam, speaking to you. Thanks for coming in our podcast. it's amazing to hear back from you guys. And
Yeah, no problem. It's been good fun.
yeah. And thanks, Avon, for joining in. And for all the viewers, we still have our, prediction sheet open. I still have it in our description section. You can go in and enter your predictions on it. And please do subscribe, like, and share, and comment in. And if you want to be part of this, please reach out to us in our social media handles. Thank you so much. Talk to you next week. Bye.